Okay, so I see one raised hand. Let me set the participants so that you can unmute yourself. Remember, just don't randomly unmute yourself. I will call on you if I see a raised hand. Okay, so Thomas, you should be able to unmute yourself. What's your question or comment? Thomas? Maybe you can't. Okay, you have your hand up. Do you have a? So everyone, I have started the recording. You can unmute yourself in this portion of class, but I will call on you so that people just aren't randomly unmuting themselves and talking over each other. So Thomas, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a question, comment? All right, maybe not. Well, we are going to get started in about 3 minutes. The goal is to get started talking about the Chapter 6 writing project that you signed up for. I do believe I have one person that I don't have accounted for so far, and that is Lydia. I might have missed you on the sign-in. So for Blackboard, if you know which one you're going to be talking about, can you mute yourself and let me know so I can put you in that group? Let's see. I think I just heard I lost somebody. All right, so with that, I have hey, Thomas, I see you put your hand up. I'm going to change my screen sec here. So I'm just going to click on the link here for the discussion. So I have from the text by option. And so, yeah, I have the first group is set already. So this is the area, if you're on and you did not post before the start of class, I don't have you in the group. And I have about 1 minute before I send people to talk in their groups. So I need to know where you plan on being. Otherwise, you'll just be hanging out with me and then I'll have to stick you someplace. So again, in the groups, I'm just pulling up on the screen here what your charge is. Remember, if you're in a group with very few people, like 2, which I do have some groups with just 2 people in it, that's an opportunity for you to actually bring the work you did. You should have the option to share your screens with each other. I think the largest group I have today has 4 people in it. So if you're a small group, do more with your time. Bring things up on the screen and perhaps share what you've done. And so far, I only have 1 group with which is like my eclectic group. So, all right, I'm gonna double check my groups here. Group 1 is set, you're all here, yay. Group 2, yes, you're all here. Well, the people who are doing option number 2. And again, like I said, you can share your screen. If someone in your group is on a computer, you can bring up the question by going to the discussion board area and sharing your screen. So try out some of these options if you can manage your time to do so. So group 3, I had 2 people and 1 person isn't here today. So I don't see Bradley. If you're here and for some reason I'm not seeing you. Okay, Ranisha, you have a question? You should be able to unmute yourself and ask it. Okay, maybe you can't unmute yourself. I will unmute you. Thomas, I see your hand went up again, so I'm gonna try to unmute you. Okay.
Yeah, I tried talking earlier, but when
that's fine. What's your question?
More of a comment. Did you see that the link to the video said Tuesday instead of Thursday?
Okay, yeah, I can fix that. Hopefully you all know what day it should be. So I will address that. The link to, you're talking about Tuesday's video?
No, today's link for the Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean,
if you scroll up, you can see it.
I will correct that, but you all know that the link remains the same, and I sometimes forget just to change the actual date, but the link is always the same. The address doesn't change. So you can actually save it somewhere if you like. But I will address that. Thank you. Ranisha, I'm gonna unmute you. Trying to. Okay, you're
okay. Sorry. I wanted to be in group 1. I don't know if you have me in there.
I did not, because when I checked just before class, I still need you to officially go ahead and put your name in that.
Okay.
So I just moved you to that group.
Okay.
Cool. And all right, so let me go ahead and double check my groups here. Group 2, I have Bradley, Isabella, and Zane. And did I get my, and then for group 3 or option 3, I have Jacob. And Jacob, your other person isn't here, so I may have to move you to my eclectic group if that person doesn't show up. And my eclectic group, I have Jamie K. You signed up for, I think, either 1 or 2? No, 7 or 10. So, and I have Luke in that group. So my eclectic group, no, I'm sorry, my eclectic group is Jamie K and Thomas. So, all right, right now, I hear people still logging on because we don't usually get started until 1:10, and I had the high hopes that we get started at 1:05 in these groups, but I hear people are literally logging on. So every time someone logs on, I have to look at a different screen to see if the missing people are here. All right, so option 3, I have set, what's an option 3? Oh, no. That's my person who's missing. Option 4, I think you're all set. I have Evan, Adam, Allison, and Natalie. So you all look present. So I just added Allison. And Macy for option 5. Hey, welcome. Bailey, that's who I was looking for. Okay, Macy and Allison, yay, you're both here, you're set. And Jacob, Bailey is here, so yay, you're set. I don't have to move you to the eclectic group. Set. And then I have Luke and Jesus, yay. Lydia, I still don't know where to put you. You're my current missing link. So everyone else, I'm getting ready to send you to your groups. So I'm gonna have to adjust my time a bit here. So we are starting at 1:10. So we're gonna go to 2:25. I'm going to stop my recording because this is just me babbling.
Hey, you are muted currently.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back. I only joined the one group, the eclectic group, and I left the rest of you alone, but your hand should be raised and someone's gonna report out. But this is our opportunity to hyper focus and get a sense of what your classmates or your writing colleagues how they approach some of the other writing projects that you didn't choose for whatever reason. So this is a glimpse into what happened with some of those writing projects. So with that, let's just go ahead and go through the different groups. So I'm going to share my screen again. The first group had option number 1. I don't know what's on my screen. Let's see what I have on my screen. So in that group, I had Alicia, Gabriel, Hannah, and Radnisha. So who wants to report out? I'm just gonna go to that option while you're talking.
I'm reporting out.
Cool.
We chose option number 1, which was to write a poem or passage lacking in tension, interest, or excitement. We discussed how some of us found it difficult to do because we're used to adding things that make our writings exciting. We found it easier to do the poems rather than the big passage. And we think the most tension-killing things are lacking in description, imagery, no rhythm, or surprises, and they usually have long words or boring words. That's pretty much all we discussed.
Okay. And if everyone in that group is good with that, you can put your hands down. And then in option number 2, I'm just gonna bring up on the screen. It was a real long one.
Yeah, I can do that one.
So that's what I'm trying to assist you all report out by bringing it up on the screen so you don't waste your 2 minutes just reading it.
Yeah. So number 2 was writing a narrative or poem with the actions and images you see on your route to work or school. The first one you have to do like it's pretty mundane, you know, it's just whatever. And then the next one you have to add tension to it, like make it interesting, keep the reader on the edge of their seat with annoyances. And one thing I noticed is that each of us did it a little bit differently, which is good. Like I talked about my route on my way to work. I believe somebody else in my group, they talked about like taking their bike to school like early in the morning. And then somebody else talked about taking like the city bus to school. So I was really excited to see that we all just didn't pick like going to work, driving your car kind of thing. We all did different modes of like transportation, which would allow for, you know, different annoyances for.
I was gonna say, basically, we see that we can be annoyed in different transportation.
Yeah.
But other than that, what kinds of, I mean, did any of you struggle? Did you find something useful out of what you attempted to create tension from these experiences?
From what I noticed, it was pretty easy to write the first one. You know, you just write about your drive on your way to wherever, your ride or whatever. So that was easy. But then, yeah, finding like annoyances to create tension and like, but not like too much tension, but like enough to draw the reader in. It was, I know for me personally, it was a little more difficult to pull from stuff that'll keep them interested, but not like too much, you know?
And did any of you see the value in attempting to like focus on adjusting like different levels of tension? Because one of the things was like, okay, try to make the tension somewhat higher in your first passage than the other one. So you're kind of like making these choices to move through different modes of being able to create tension in a scene or piece.
I did. I can't speak for everybody because we forgot to touch on that part specifically.
No. Yeah, I just wanted to just put that out there that some of these, like the writing projects, they actually do a little bit more. So paying attention to, basically as a writer, you can control that sort of, they say here, that thermostat of where that tension is and how it's coming and going. And I also like this one about, it asks you to actually focus on like a psychological quirk. Let's see, I have, I saw some hands raised, so, oh, never mind. that's my computer doing something else it shouldn't be doing right now. But so that psychological quirk. So and this just reminded me, because I personally have one. It's not made up, it's real. Like when I'm in a car, I really dislike pedestrians. But when I'm walking, I really dislike people in cars. And thinking about that as from a writing perspective, like that's ridiculous, but that's truly how I feel when depending on my personal mode of transportation. So I'm just highlighting this part because this also touches on something I think a few weeks ago, like how do we draw on some aspects of our real life or reality, even though we're writing creative fiction. So that's an example of how I could draw on some aspect of this, a psychological quirk that I could, explore and then perhaps create other ones that I'm not personally familiar with. So that's me droning on. Thank you very much. And if your group is satisfied, we can go on to number 3. And I had Jacob, and I think your partner got kicked out of at some point. I don't know if you all had a chance to talk at all.
Yeah, we talked a little bit. So we mostly talked. Yeah, she got kicked out with 4 or 5 minutes to spare. So
Okay.
we talked for the most part, which is good. But basically our project was basically an argument between two people of equal power level, effectively. And because I'm a massive nerd, I'm when I first saw this, I was like, well, obviously I have like 2 gods or 2 superheroes, of biblical proportions. This argument had to be had because that's only what's interesting. But when we were talking, I also mentioned that it's like, well, coming back down to lower power levels makes the story easier to tell, and you can still build that tension when it comes to simpler issues. I think we mentioned stuff obviously issues between husband and wife can be very tense. I'm sure there's a million stories written about those. We also talked about how more not fantastical, but more like storybook issues, like an issue between the argument between the tortoise and the hare, or other more down to earth conflict that you can still arise tension out of. And when you're looking at stuff like that around the idea of tension, it's not necessarily that it has to be super high stakes. It just has.
Let me ask you this: what kind of equals? I mean, what are the characters that you two created that were equals? Who was in your piece?
So mine was between 2 okay. Initially, mine was about 2 predators between whether who got to eat the kill. Bailey didn't really talk too much about her too, because I think I kind of overdid the conversation about mine.
Well, thank you for that public apology.
Well, for mine, I wanted to figure out the subject first before I figured out who was talking. That way I know what they're talking about. So come up with the conversation, and then I'll figure, the rest of it.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because, who we are as writers, who we are as people, we bring that aspect to ourselves, to our writing. And so even a task like deciding about an argument between 2 equals brings in our own prejudice, ideas, thoughts, and biases about who gets to even be equals. And one of the things that came to my mind immediately for me, which was easiest way to go, probably was 2 kids. Because then I just see kids, 2 9-year-olds or something, and then that's a safe space for me to even figure out what 2 individual equals look like. But even the idea of this maybe not, what would this look like if it's not human beings? What would it look like if it is, some other kind of creature? So I just wanted to bring that to light, is that we're always connected to some other aspect of our writing. And I think you just said this, Bailey, I need to figure out some subject before I got to here. So they're always, even though we're looking at parts of the writing, this writing is truly that song you may or may not learn, the leg bone is connected to the knee bone, all that stuff, it's always connected, and we're taking it apart. So give yourself some grace if you find yourself creating more work because you need to figure out something else in order to do this particular task in front of you. Make that subject, make that thing, like figuring out what the subject is, make that easier for you so that you can get to this task. Because writing in general is this interdisciplinary connected thing that's not really only doing one thing at a time. And I hope that makes sense. All right. We have number 4 in that one.
Yeah, it was Evan, myself, Allison, Natalie, and Lydia. So, yeah, I don't think any of us wrote a poem. I think we all did short stories. We all did short shorts. And two of us haven't finished them entirely, but we all were talking about the specific 32145 that they threw into that, which I apparently ignored and did my own thing. And I think that after our discussion, I made like a very, very foolish decision to do that because I really enjoyed how Luke's was written in comparison to like how mine was. I definitely think that like, his tension was higher, even though like in our stories, the stakes were technically like lower in his. It didn't necessarily have to be more dangerous, but the potential was there. So the
execution, you're saying like the execution of tension, of the creating that was implemented better.
Correct. It made you ask more questions. Where like the end of mine, it literally was like there's two things that could have happened. There's not really much room for error there. For his, it was just like, what is going on? I want to know more. I need to know more. And you can guess, and you can constantly be guessing, but you don't know for certain. The only person who knows for certain might not even be Luke. It's the character. So kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is great because that kind of discussion, like this is so not about getting anything right when we're doing this. This is about seeing what people have done and then saying, oh, how can I rethink what I'm doing?
That's exactly it. I don't think I did it wrong. I just think I could have done it much better. And cool. I'm looking to my peer as an example of better.
So. All right. So you all, that's the call. You heard it from a classmate, not just me. So that's the goal of what we're doing in this class. So, all right. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to 5. I only had 2 people in that. So how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I'll be the one who's reporting out.
Okay.
So we had option number 5, which was to write about like a tension-filled scene or something like that, and have the weaker person have a weaker person who seemed to win, kind of like in the reading pancakes with Buddy and Sam. Alyssa, she said she wrote about a date going wrong, and I wrote about like an interrogation. And I think one thing that we found, we thought it was going to be kind of easy because it's just like, oh, you write a scene and whatnot. But we found it kind of difficult to follow the directions just because they gave us a graph of tension to follow. So it like went up and then went down, but constantly went up. Both of us said that we found it kind of hard just because our tension just kind of rose without really dipping at any points. So that was pretty much what we thought of that.
Well, that's good because that also, and there's some point in the text where it says, just having tension for the sake of tension is short-lived and it's not going to keep your reader's attention or do what you needed to do ultimately. So in a way, you're practicing that as what happens if you just continually increase. I guess you have a heart attack or something because
yeah.
So yeah, and I think some of these are designed to have you do one thing and see what happens when you sit on that egg just too long, a little bit too long, oh, this is not working. All right. So, well, thank you. We're going to go to option 8, and then we're going to come back to 7 and 10 because that was my eclectic group, and that's not what I want to pull up. So if I could find, here it is. So option 8. I think I had just 2 people in that too. So who wants to?
Yeah, I can report out for this. Jesusa was the other person who did option 8. Her idea for this was to kind of compare. I guess we both had similar ideas. Hers was to compare like 2 young girls, one of whom showed signs of being like a serial killer. So polar opposites. We didn't talk too much about that, but maybe she can kind of comment on what her ideas were. But yeah, one of them is kind of on one end of the spectrum of evil, and the other one, the story is told from the good girl's perspective. So we can kind of get to see what she thinks of the other one.
Hey, Susan, you have anything to add? Or I burst in?
No, he pretty much summed it up.
Okay, so this one, I appreciate the people who chose this one because it's telling you specifically you're doing 2 things, and it's getting us to look at what happens when we do pay attention to the various parts and pieces that we're pulling together, the choices we're making, that we're laying on top or side by side to work with each other. So using dialogue and action, what happens when those 2 pieces come together with the intent to serve the creation of tension, creating it, resolving it, what that does for you as a writer when you start to look at the various options you have in your toolkit of putting these pieces together. And it should be more challenging to, as you start to think about it, writing in that particular way. So, and you could do this with anything. You don't have to have a prompt that says, hey, you should think about these 2 or 3 things at the same time. You have all those practices in which you think about these things at the same time. All right, so we also, thank you. We have one last group. One person looked at option 7. So that was my eclectic group.
Yes, so I did 7 and Thomas did 10, and we kind of went different directions. Thomas is just dialogue, and so he said he was doing it like the action route where it's more like arguing and talking. And for 9, like we talked about how I have to do it more like I have to focus on images and not like really explain what's going on, just show what's going on. And so kind of keep it a little vague, like Hickson did. And so when we were talking, I decided I'm going to do it like, because it's 4 to 6 people, I'm going to do it like show 3 different relationships, an example of like a not so good relationship, a good relationship, and then like a relationship that doesn't exist, like either broken up or it hasn't started. And I'm going to do it so it's like tension wise, like it's from, because I have to use the facade in it, and I'm going to do it from like the point of view of each of those people in the groups to create tension.
So with yours, and this is the group that I did visit, I know option 10 is write a poem using dialogue and using the principles of facade. And I did mention this to you, right? I said you could, yours doesn't specifically say facade, but it's a technique that you could still employ. Mm-hmm. That whole idea of how facade works, I do want everyone to at least make a note of that. If you haven't paid attention to how that particular tool for creating tension might serve you, please do so, because you can use it in just about anything. So yeah, do you want to add something?
I think that's basically it, because we're kind of, it's just, I don't know. I think that's it.
Okay, so I am looking at our time and the what we should be doing right now. I am going to get to this mini lesson at some point, but I do want people to have their writing time. So we're going to start writing time immediately. We're still going to come back at 2:15. I'm not going to put you into small groups. So I'm just going to mute everyone and have you go to your writing time. Again, you can use this time for whatever it is you want, but we will be back at 2:15. And I'll still be here if you have questions or anything. I'm going to stop my share. So I am recording this section. So I hope you were able to spend that class time productively. And this is giving you the time to write in class. 30 minutes, my goal, 25 to 20, I will accept, but I shoot for 30. If you don't find this time useful, you please let me know. You could let me know. I prefer not in the public chat, but you could email me and let me know if you don't find this time useful. Just to remind you, I'm not doing this to get out of any course content. I'm doing this to give you the sense of a routine. So having time to write on some sort of regular basis or some chunk of regular time, say I will write for 30 minutes 3 times a week, that might move around. But the idea is it's important that you do spend some writing time. And so since I have you sort of as a engaged audience, I put that in class. And we're only going to be doing this till probably about week 8 or 9, because the class will shift and we'll start doing other things like workshops and stuff like that. So this won't be happening the whole entire semester. So I want you to keep that in mind. I also want to, let's see if I have, let you know about another thing we're doing. We did a bit this week when I had everyone come to class, hopefully ready to talk about the Hickson practice. So we touched on a practice from chapter 4 and chapter 6. And so we're gonna do that again. So this week, and we're gonna look towards chapter 7. So you should be working on chapter 7 to submit at the end of next week, which is week 7. So that homework activity, and this is just to try to get a little more accountability out of all of us that we're ready to talk about it. And I gotta correct something. So this week, by the end of the week on Sunday, you should submit the writing log for chapter 6. And I put this note here that you're shooting for Sunday, but you really should be done with that previous week's chapter by Tuesday. So if you don't submit it until noon, that's an hour before class start on Tuesday, I'm not going to count anything against people, but this gives you some lifetime wiggle room. But it needs to be submitted by that Tuesday, or after that, it will be late unless you've worked out something with me. So here's the link to submit that writing log. And we are going to be talking about a writing project for chapter 7. Again, that's going to be on Thursday. So I ask you to look ahead and try to select something by class time on Tuesday. At the latest is, that hour before class time on Thursday. As you see, even with people, the majority of you posting early what writing project you're going to discuss, I still fumbled around a little bit, shifting people around. So the earlier you can do that, the better it is. Of course, if you say something, as early as like today, I'm going to do option number 6, and you change your mind by next week, Wednesday, that's fine. I just, with technology, it's not very hard to make these spontaneous groups. The homework assignment for Tuesday, this is the part I said is new. We did it for the first time this week where we all focus on a particular practice. So the practice I want you to make sure you complete before class on Tuesday is the second practice out of the book. It's on page 283. It's the one about Raymond Carter. And it's in the section where they're talking about how to figure out patterns by ear. So there are different ways this chapter talks about how to figure out patterns. And one of them is using what you hear. So to do that. So I'm asking everyone to complete this second activity. And so by the time you get to class, and I'm asking this time for evidence that you have completed that activity by posting the answers to some of the prompts that are listed with that practice from chapter 7. And I've reproduced those prompts here. So the whole activity asks you to read the first paragraph of the short story, make a list of the sounds, and answer the prompts. Do you notice a pattern? I really hope you do more than just say yes, but it is structured as a yes or no question. So it's fine if you just say yes, but keep in mind, we're going to be talking about this in class. So at some point your yes should be followed up with, some examples or detail. And then it asks, do you think that the pattern that you noticed was intentional on Carver's part? That too is a yes or no question. But I mean, if you give us some sense of, if you say yes or no, why, it would help. But we are going to be talking about this in class. So you can bring your additional explanation, just be ready to engage if you just write yes or no. And then I ask you to complete the whole activity, but I don't want you to post on Blackboard the questions to these two prompts. I don't want you to post your answers. I want you to hold that part. I want you to complete this part, but hold that for when we come to class and we talk in small groups. So the other part is, it asks you to practice substituting other words for some of the choices that you saw Carver using, and then try to figure out what changes when you do that kind of substituting. So that's the activity. And this is a whole push to get us having whole class discussions focused on, at least one practice out of a chapter. So if we will be able to do this, you can complete this whole task by clicking on the title right here. It'll take you into the discussion board area. So I'm gonna click on that. It's in the same area that you're going to post your writing project number options. So it's just the first thing that you see here. The rest of these are where you will go ahead and post your writing options. It seemed to make the most sense to me at the time just to put this in the same area as the other stuff with chapter 7. So with that, that's my overview of what it's coming. And you should be continuing to work on your practice 10. So now the floor is open to you. We have 4 minutes of class time left. You will see week 5 by the time I get out of office hours today. I'm sorry, week 7 will be posted. I just haven't have it turned on. So you'll be able to see week 7, and I'm trying to make sure that you see the next week before Monday. So that's it for me. I don't have much other of a recap today, except for things. I think this is the second time. This has been a good week for discussion, so we can hopefully keep that up. And you should be able to unmute yourself. I think I gave everybody the power. So I'm going to stop recording this. And as you don't forget your checkout, this will be a good time if you haven't posted in the chat. You didn't get to check out in small groups to discuss what you wrote about. So, give me something to work with so I can see what people were doing and thinking. That's another way to use this chat area. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And I'm gonna stop the recording.